actually didn't really drag Frank into it, but he kind of like made a mention. He's like, that would be kind of cool to actually have two brains up here that you can stump the chump, basically. Uh,
For the 8 a.m. part, I'm like,
hey, you're late, Mr. Fix, but that's okay. We'll pick on him. I did a quick Cliff Notes type thing because I'm sure you guys have seen some of my slideshows and stuff in the past. Uh, I've talked about repair and troubleshooting on different types of games. I do a lot of stuff, and I will show you some. I don't have many pictures, but um, if we want to see some pictures of some horror stories at pastimes, I can probably share those as well. But I don't know what I have on my laptop. Uh, Obviously, this is troubleshooting. Again, I love doing troubleshooting because that's what I do best. We're going to do a little quick overview, what not to do, understanding issues, which is what we try to do in the field. So if you have a problem, you're like, what do we do to solve the problems? Parts on hand. I do have a little sheet that I can email or share to you via Google if you want. That's fine. Some resources, and of course, this is all about you guys. I don't want to stick to a slideshow that's could be boring, but I want to know what you guys think that we could repair. Or how do you what do you want to repair? That type of deal, if that makes sense. So obviously, who am I? Obviously, I'm a human. I've been in the actual gaming industry for 32 years, since I was 18. So I've seen a lot of things. I've done a lot of things. I'm an electrical engineer. I do design circuits, AC and DC development. If you guys don't know what that is, obviously that's basically taking something and making something better and so forth. I am a computer programmer by trade in 9 different languages, very proficient at cross compilation. So if somebody wants something on a Commodore, I'll make it work on an IBM, easy. I am also the lead tech at Pastimes Arcade, so a lot of the games that are in the free play area, I have touched. So if it's broke, don't blame me, blame the other guys. Where are they? They're supposed to be in here. I told my two techs that they have to be in the show, and I don't see them, so I'm gonna have to write them up for a tardy note. Um, yeah, I know. They don't want to see me. I did work for Penn Gaming. Anybody know what Penn Gaming is? Slot technician for the big guys. How long do you think I lasted there? 2 days. That's enough. I won't say many things. If you guys want to know, I will tell you personally. I'm not going to say it because this stuff does get streamed on the internet. I am also a musician. I just recently acquired my ham radio operator's license. Farthest contact is California, which is cool. And on my spare time, I do DJing. I'm also married for 13 years. My wife's not here yet. She's said she'll be down here. 4 kids, and they are all out of the house. I'm sure you guys know that feeling. It's amazing. But the big thing I do is I do like to spend a lot of time with the family. So the overview, obviously, we're going to try to do some basic troubleshooting. I'm not going to go into elaborate details because you can't squeeze it all in 1 hour. But I want to see what you guys want to talk about too. I do work on games from the pre-war era, electromechanical, solid state, and of course some of the modern Stern stuff. I can repair Stern boards, but I will not repair your board for you. I try to do stuff in-house at pastimes, unfortunately. Um, like I said, I will open it up to the seminar if you guys have questions, answers. You guys can shout out, raise your hand, whatever. Uh, some of the common tools on hand, which I did mention that, we'll give you that slideshow as well. And what to do, obviously, when you can't get it fixed, don't panic. We can help you. That's why we're here. And of course, this is maybe the same thing for you, Frank. You don't mind answering questions too at the pinball show if they see a tug on your shoulder, correct?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I put my tech articles out on my website and on my Facebook page, and it's all really based on things, excuse me, things that I'm experiencing at the moment or have recently had to deal with. But I don't know what you have to deal with, so feel free to reach out to me, whether it be on Facebook
Yep.
or even here at the show. Just grab me and pull me aside, and I'll do what I can to help you out. And if we can't really figure it out here, you can reach out later, and we'll work on it when you're back home in front of your game again.
Yeah. Now this is my fun part. I will obviously give you things what not to do. How many people have used AI? I am so sorry. I found this just punching this into AI. Anybody notice anything strange in there? Looks pretty straightforward. But that first one is kind of scary. It says obviously be specific about the manufacturer game if it does not exist. Does it have a flex capacitor? Have you seen one in a game yet? Bullshit. Back to the Future. No, actually, I'm sorry. I made that up, actually. I edit that in real time, just like our famous scammers like to do to everybody. So, no, that's actually a good example of what AI does put out there. I don't really recommend it as a source for fixing things because it's still learning like we were learning when we were younger. It makes a lot of mistakes. It will do. Unfortunately, you can't get around those mistakes with AI, unfortunately. Wait till they take over the world and we're all screwed.
Yeah, every time I use Chat GPT, I always say please, thank you, and good morning. So when it kills us, maybe it'll kill me quickly and painlessly.
I will lose my voice because I did a lot of talking yesterday, helping a lot of the vendors get set up. Any vendors in here? Everything working good? Awesome. That's what we like to hear. I do use a lot of online forums. I don't post on Facebook forums because I don't like getting flamed for telling the right answer. I'm sure we've seen that.
I just did a post on that the other day.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, 30 years doing this stuff. If I don't know what I'm doing and I'm telling you something, there's a problem. You know, if you don't want to accept that. The K Love forums is awesome too because they do have a small section for pinball repair. I only hang out there for video games because obviously at Pastimes we do have a lot of video games. I do a little bit of contribution to helping hack ROMs for free play so you don't have to drill holes in your doors. I'm sure you guys don't like that on games. Um, Clay's pinball games, guides, you could still find those out there. I know he's posted some on his website, pinballrepair.com, I believe. Pin Repair, that's right. Thank you. PinWiki, yes. It's a great resource. There's a lot of stuff in there, especially some of the newer stuff. Fortunately, I don't use it because obviously everything's in here. After years, you do it. Who remembers Uncle Willie? There we go. Those were good hip tips back then too. This is dates how long I've been doing this stuff. Um, the other thing too is you can hit up your local vendors and operators in your town if you can't figure out something. They sure know how to fix things because obviously they have a route to keep stuff maintained. Pinball, as they say, phone a friend. I call Frank all the time. No, I'm just kidding. I know Dave calls me like 10 times a week. And of course, I know, I'm sorry. I told you I'd pick on this man. Catches me while I'm working on something at pastimes all the time. This is one of my favorite ones. Don't shotgun repair things. How many people jump in? It's like, I know what is going on. I normally recommend inspect everything. Everything has a cause and effect. If there's fire, you look for it, wherever it was. The other thing, when I was doing a lot of repairs at Dr. Scott's, the thing I always have a problem with is like the customer never knew what happened when the game failed. So I was like, what were you doing when it stopped? And they really said nothing. And so it was always a pain in the ass to try to figure out what happened to the game. But luckily, we were able to fix things over the years and make things happy. This is one we do stress because we don't overfuse things. Frank's made his fair share of foil fuses in the past. No, I'm just kidding. He made. That's probably a blank slide. Yeah, understanding the issue.
Actually, can
This
I
is.
add something to that?
Yeah, go for it.
Don't work on the game with the power on.
How many in here do that?
I don't even abide by that rule all the time, but yeah, turn it off. Save yourself a lot of potential headaches.
This is obviously is going to be a cliff note version because I don't want to, elaborate too in depth because I can confuse a lot of people. I can make you smarter. But it's, like I said, we're going to talk about obviously lamps, solenoids, the CPU side. I didn't write much on sound, but I can probably do a lot of that from my head. No power obviously is a big one because everybody gets new games that are used probably on Facebook or eBay, which is the worst, because you never know what you're going to get. Typical features and toys. A lot of these new games do have toys. They are starting to break. I'm sure you guys have seen that a little bit. New Stern stuff? No? You said no? No, I'm not being mean to Stern. Like I said, things break because obviously they need to improve products and make them better. And they do. And that's the best thing about Stern. This is a couple of things I pulled from my slides. This is one for the lamps. How many people understand how the lamp matrix works on the Bally machines? Little crash course here, obviously, because I like picking on Bally machines and early Williams because they're cheap. That's a good starter machine for most people to get into. Obviously, I broke this down. Obviously, every decoder has a section of lamps that it controls. And I'm trying to look at both sides. It's crazy having two screens this year. Uh, every decoder goes obviously to several different lamps. I think it's like 16 lamps per. No, it's 8, give or take, 8 or 10, somewhere around there. I can't remember. But they'll break them down to different sections. It's good to troubleshoot them in this way so you know where your problem's at, where to target that, and it will break it down to where it actually is in the schematic. There'll be like little cue markers there in the left half portion of the screen here. So in your manual, obviously, be a lot clearer than this stuff. So it'll obviously each drive transistor for a lamp is already have an associated lamp transistor associated with it. Sometimes there may be an asterisk next to it, which means obviously there's two lamps being driven by the circuit. So you might see that on a lot of Bally games. Mainly, I think Evil Knievel's one that does a lot of that stuff. Anything that has animation, because they're trying to share the number of circuits on the board. Is that pretty straightforward and pretty easy to understand? Any questions? Because this is where we open this up a little bit too. This is some of the common transistors used for the lamp matrix. The typical Bally uses a 5060. You can go use a 5064 if you want to in a pinch. Does anybody know what that also can be used for? It plays music. Seeberg jukeboxes actually use the same transistor for the trip relay on most of the modern solid-state machines. I found that out the hard way because I was looking for it and I cross-referenced it and put one in my jukebox and it actually works perfectly. The Data East and Williams, they obviously use the common tip 102. You may see 122s, and the other one I think is 120 for the columns, and obviously the drives for the rows is obviously 40. I did make sure that's correct because I always get them confused, like our brains were losing our memories. Typical Stern and White Star. Do you have a question? If it's having a problem, is it working? That's a trick question. Right? um, is the what I normally do is obviously some lamps in some games, especially Bally's, they be stuck on. We know that's a shorted transistor. I've seen some cases in import games like Zachariah that the actual transistor it may work, but the light will be dimmer than normal, which means it's not putting out a full output. Probably one of the gates is screwed up on the transistor. Testing them is another story. You can test a typical 5060s. Unfortunately, I don't use a tester for any of my work. I actually do things with a voltmeter. Pretty straightforward, just crisscross on the things. And if you see the values go like, I think 1.6 ohm will show that it's out of spec. It should be like zero point 0.4, if I remember right. Almost like
Well,
a diode, basically. Yeah.
so in the early Bally and Stern games don't use a matrix like the Williams did. Each bulb is driven individually. So if you lift your play field up and your 2X light isn't working, you have it in a lamp test and the 3X is, you just take a jumper wire and jump it from the tab from one to the other. And if the bulb lights, then you know the bulb and the socket are good. But now it may not be the transistor, it could be the connector up at the top. Those little .100 pins are getting old and tired, and I can't tell you how many hours I've spent rebuilding those connectors to just solve a lot of problems. So on the early Bally Stearns, the quickest way is just to run a jumper wire next to an adjacent lamp. If it's only one light, it's not the transistor. If eight aren't working, then it could be. And the way you would find that out is you would look at your lamp matrix chart, and then you would see if the other seven are on the same column or on the same row. Then you go back to the board. Then the next easiest thing to do is when you look at your schematic and you see what pin it goes to on the board, you pull the connector off and you jump it one over. And then if everything lights, now you know the problem's further up on the board.
And speaking of, stuff like that, since you do have a Williams, Marco does have a cool little tester tool that you can buy that actually breaks out the lamp matrix on a little LED 8 by 8
Yeah,
and
it's a little
it's
like
amazing.
that fits in your pocket. It's
Yep.
not like that big. Yeah,
If it's your friends, you can steal it, put it in your pocket, and you won't know. Very good to do. The way I used to test it was very similar to what Frank had. Just basically move it down, and you can troubleshoot a lamp matrix real quick that way and find out which row and column is actually failing.
that works with switch matrices as well.
Yep. Now I did put this side comment note. I'll get you here in a second, Roland. Uh, I'm thinking I may start talking a lot about newer machines next year because that's become obviously the new thing. Um, Addressable lamps are fun to work with. Anybody work with them in the raw, which means programming like Arduinos. And you know from homebrews, obviously if one is missing, nothing else in the chain works correctly. So maybe I'm thinking we talk about something like that next year because this is starting to become problems too. Because I've seen Pinball Brothers. I've had to, in fact, I donated a playfield on the Project Pinball. Don't be afraid to bid on it to help out a good cause. We did swap our alien playfield. And what I noticed too about their addressable, because they are chained, when one of the LEDs actually fell off on the targets because they light their targets from behind, it affected a lot of things behind a chain. But if I think they did it smart, they put all their targets on the last set of numbers. So obviously addressable means that 10 would light up a red on this circuit and so forth. It would basically go down the row. And anything below it would stop working if that 10 was missing. That make a little sense now for addressables? Rowan. Oh, on the Bally's. Yep. Getting tired from opening and closing. But yeah, that is a common problem. We don't see that very often, but it does happen. Well, a little bit quick notes on the solenoid stuff. Um, I didn't do a lot of stuff on this. Obviously, we were talking about this a little bit. Locate and note what has failed, especially when you're working on newer games that you have no idea. Get that paper out and start making notes. Because may you see a common problem in the way that's designed. Because you may see some things that are not working underneath it. Very similar to the lamp matrix, they do chain the common power for all their solenoids. Because you could have like a pop bumper that may stop working, the one maybe next to it, and you can find out that the actual wire is broken off that carries the power to the next one, and so forth. And it's also the same for flash lamps as well. Some Williams machines they had a lot of problems with that when they stacked a lot of flashers like in the back. Now does happen too because when people are not careful lifting a playfield up with flash lamps on Williams, they crush the leads together and actually do damage to the driver board. Um, we do use schematics obviously to locate the drive transistor and then may what have failed. Uh, Solenoids are real tricky to work on when you have no idea. Or if you, how many people can read a schematic? This is good. Okay, that's awesome. So obviously we follow things backwards in the chain. You start from the source, obviously the coil. Is it locked on? Is it still locked on? Then we go back and find. Uh, Basically, I go backwards from the schematic from the IC. Listen to this one, Dave. You might learn something. No, you're listening. Okay. Obviously, replace the IC. Well, I'm going to say this. If it's stuck on consistently, normally we target the transistor. I think I wrote that wrong. I feel bad. We target the transistor that drives it. There's obviously a pre-drive that runs them. Like I said, this is also common for Data East, Williams, Stern, and Valley. If it's still stuck on, then we go back another step. Let's see, Williams, they actually use a 7408, if I remember right. That's why we keep schematics. So if you have them in your game, you study it, but go backwards. And if it's still locked on, then we go another step further
408 is before.
before
So it's the 7408, the pre, and then
pre, and
the
then the
transistor.
pre,
But
and then the drive.
the 7408 is there to keep the game from running if the blanking circuit isn't working.
Yep.
So if you have a whole bunch of things out, then you could look at that chip. But I've seen it affect just one or two things at a time. So,
Yep.
but
Especially if it's a catastrophic failure.
they're always fun.
Yep. And obviously everything goes back to a latch. You know what a latch is? Electronics. A little quick education, obviously. The CPU talks to the peripheral PIAs. You guys heard the terminology PIAs. Well, you got to tell the other boss what to do. The latches. The latch will actually determine what gates get the appropriate signal, and it'll divide it where it needs to go. And then that goes obviously to the pre-drive transistor, and then the drive. And of course, when that fails, we hate changing the PIAs because that's 40 pins of hell. I've seen some really bad troubleshooting, or actually bad soldering, from people that don't know how to solder, and I've had to fix boards that were completely damaged from traces ripped off the board because of this chip. This is the last one. If it gets really bad, foil fuses, which has happened, it can take out an address line on the CPU. CPU may still work. I think the CPU has, I think that's 4 addresses for 4-bit decoding, BDC. It'll take it down to those latches and so forth and then decode it to where it needs to go. But yeah, you can actually have a CPU that has a bad address line that can cause things not to work correctly as well. Pretty accurate?
Yeah, I think I should have stayed in bed. You don't need my help.
That's right. Switch matrix. Very simple too. All manufacturers are different. Did you know that? Valley did stuff direct to a point. They do have some latches. I think it's a 4049, if I remember right. Somewhere. Uh, they control them obviously on the left side of the board. We do have two plugs. One is obviously for the door. One is for the actual playfield. Common thing I see obviously is the pins. These pins headers are starting to corrode or erode because of the age. Um, Replace everything with new pin headers if in doubt. I do recommend it obviously because they're failing. Williams and Data East, and I will say this thing for White Star because White Star does strobing. We know what strobing is? Not streaking, strobing. Obviously, you got guys that are listening. There's a chip on there that actually strobes, like the WPC uses the ULN 2803. Very common chip that fails, especially when people are working with the games on. Anybody guilty? Like I saw some hands earlier. I've done it too, so it's okay. Put a socket on it and say, "Oh shit, I fucked it up." Can we say that, Martin? Okay, good. This is PG-13, just so you know.
Now, speaking of that 2803 chip, we replace them. We just socket them. And WPC boards, like, don't even look at them the wrong way. The traces are very, very delicate. I just cut the chip out.
Yep.
Get a good, what is it, the blue handled,
Yeah, the blue
I
snips.
can't think of what it is. Good
Planer,
flush cutter, a
planer.
good one. What's that?
I think it's planer.
Yeah, somebody, but don't get like a cheapy one. Get a good one and just cut the chip off, cut the legs. I actually saw this on an Atari Tech Bulletin years ago, and you just cut the chip off, you cut the legs, and you lift the body out, and then gently go down the line, reheat each pin, pull them out, clean them out real good, and you can still do damage. But if you don't get those holes cleaned out right, and you're trying to pull that chip out, you're gonna wish that you had to just cut the thing out because it's just more aggravation than what it's worth.
I'll tell you what, I'll add on to that too, especially when pulling the chip, when you cups them like, because that's the same thing I do. I cut the chips off the board. Do not crank your soldering iron up to full max, because that causes a lot of problem. I repair a lot of Atari boards. Unfortunately, I had one at Pastimes Airborne Avengers, who's ever been there. Unfortunately, it died because we did have a power spike from lightning strike that was nearby. Only game that did not survive. That's pretty damn good. But with the Ataris, they used, I think I'm going to say this wrong probably. I think they used lead traces on the top because everything was lead based. Breathe deep. Cut it off the board and actually extract the pins directly, and then socket, socket, socket. White Star obviously is very similar to Data East. I got other words for White Star, but I'm not going to say it. This is a PG-13 thing. Gottlieb System 1 and 80 are actually very similar to the System 3 and 7 era, which is they use a little different way of doing things. Um, this is my favorite. What's unique about the System 3 switch matrix? Do you know? Oh, I do. They actually share the same address lines as the lamps. So sometimes you can have a fuse on your lamps go out and your switches don't work. Surprise.
I've
Did I,
never seen that
did I
before.
stump you? See,
Hey, I'm here to learn too.
that's right. I've seen that problem a lot where it keeps saying there's multiple cascading switches going at once, and you notice there's something odd that your lamps aren't working. Check the fuses. Don't overfuse it, obviously. I can share this list. I know it's really small, but I can share this list with you. And these are some of the parts I do recommend having on hand. Do you want me to read it off or just answer a question? Anybody got any questions? Yes. Do you want me to share it to you? I'll get your email address and I can share it to you. How's that? I can even share other ones. I can bring up another one. I have another one in here as well from I taught some stuff at Pastimes, so we can bring that up as well. You'll see a couple slides that were copied from it. This is one of them. Obviously, this runs down all the fuses and all the lamps, unless you're doing LEDs. Um, Transistors. This is all stuff I do recommend having on hand. I do have alternate cross-reference numbers as well, because that's always handy to know. I do recommend, if you're going to be working on a lot of games, get one of the little electronics Bibles. It's pocket hell. I don't have it with me for mine. Mine was actually gifted to me by Dr. Scott, actually, because he said that I would need this in the future. And obviously, Scott is doing fine for all those that wants to know. He's hanging in there. Um, Diodes, obviously, keep those on hand. Obviously, bridge rectifiers, and obviously all these different chips. And I was nice enough, and I actually put the part numbers on there for you. Where's a place where you shouldn't buy parts at? Bueller.
AliExpress,
There you go. There's one.
eBay.
eBay.
It's going to cost
Timu.
more. I mean, I need the 6502. It's $1 on eBay, but at Mauser it's $10. Buy the $10 part because you don't know what you're getting when you buy the cheap. It could be bad. It could be counterfeit. You don't know.
This is another one too. It's a shocker. Amazon. Don't do that. Same places, same Chinese distributors, obviously. I have seen my fair share of fake parts. You have too. It's horrible when you're working on it, especially my worst one I think I've had in my day was working. I think Scott bought the chips. We don't say that out loud. He bought them because we needed them. He bought them off eBay. They turned out that the tip 102s would work great 5 or 6 times. Then all of a sudden that soil locked on. Smoke, fire, everything. We didn't call the fire department, unfortunately. But it's scary to see cheap stuff like that can damage your board. So buy it at a reputable source. Like I said, I normally recommend Mouser, DigiKey, Newmark, of course, at a good price. Places like Marco, they do sell stuff. Obviously, they do have a markup on it, but if you're in the hobby, you need to buy them in bulk. You're going to be fixing a lot of stuff. I want to put up the questions and answers, but I can slip over to the other slide if you want. Does everybody have any questions? Yes. Did you change the coil too, I'm assuming? A big problem on a lot of that stuff because that's a metal chute. It's picking up a lot of metal dust from the ball. Not necessarily. That's stainless steel. Um, your coil sleeve. That's the first thing I would target. Never underestimate the design of the engineers. If you re-engineer it, you're going to make it worse. You could do more damage to the game. I've seen people hack things from especially a lot of imported games over the years, containers of games. I mean, God, I wish I still have it still. We've seen, like people re-engineered a display where they soldered one on top of the other, DMD. That's a lot of fucking work. It surprisingly it worked. Um, I've seen people hack things. I think I might have a couple slides in here of people's really bad hack jobs. Very rare, unless it was stuck on at one time, or if it was kicking, it may have fatigued the windings. It's pretty unusual unless it shorts out.
I would take it apart, put a fresh sleeve in, clean the plunger, and then look at the tip. Make sure the tip's not broken off or rounded or worn.
As they say in Archer, just the tip. Okay. This is a slideshow I did bring up at pastimes because we did do a lot of teaching on classes. I did this for 2 hours. We had a smaller group, probably about 25 people, more one on one. Obviously, these are some of the basics things to have on hand, and I'm sure you agree with this list, Frank. Oh, you can't read. I know. That's all right. It says voltmeters. No,
Volt? What's a volt?
what's a volt? Actually, I got something I'm gonna bring up for you just for giggles. Frank brought up a really good one on his forums. How many got New Year's Stern games? There's another part to this one. Here you go, sir. I'll let you take this for a second. Let me get my voice back a little bit.
All right, so first a little bit of a background story. I had a customer. He's got an original Black Knight. He's got a Guardians of the Galaxy and a comic pro, Star Wars comic pro. And I went out and I worked on his Black Knight a few times, and the Stearns didn't need anything. Wiped them down a bit, and I was there a couple times. And the one time I'm there, I see they hadn't been updated at all since they were new, and they had like whatever the release code was, 0.88 or whatever. So I update the Guardians, it's fine. I go to update the Stern or the Star Wars, and it goes fine, and then it won't update the cabinet node board. So I've tried a few times. I re-downloaded the update, and on this guy's laptop, because I don't always carry my laptop, it took like 40 minutes to download it. Tried it a few times. I left. I'm like, all right, let me contact Stern. I emailed them, and they said, yeah, maybe you tried pushing too many updates through. I said, okay, can you get me an older update? Well, no, we don't have it. I guess you just throw it away when it's done. We just delete everything that's not current. So I tried getting an SD card, and for some reason I had issues downloading the update. I don't know if you know on the Stearns, if you have any problems with the SD card, you can download the SD card image and just put the new SD card in. You don't always have to just do it through the USB stick because the SD cards do fail occasionally. So after, I wasn't dealing with it every single day, but it was about 2 months went by. So finally I got the SD card to update. I took it to the guy's house. I plugged it in and it still doesn't work. So now I'm pissed off. I ripped the cable out, the network cable out between the cabinet node board and the logic, and I pull it out of the Guardians. I plug it in, and damn it, it works. It updates and everything. Now, already the other side I didn't say is that I did take the node board out and try it in another game, and it updated and it was fine. And Stern says, "Oh, maybe you need an update. You need a node board." It's like I can't tell this guy he's got to buy a $200 node board. I mean, there was nothing wrong with it. So then after all this, I get it to update and it works. We get another network cable, plug it in, it's fine. And then I remember he had said before on one of the other visits that I was there is that sometimes the start button wouldn't flash or the lockdown bar wouldn't, but after a while it would finally come on. So long story short, was one bad wire in the strand of eight. So I bought a cheapy network cable tester. So if you are working even on the Jersey Jack, because they use the Ethernet cables
Yeah.
too,
Yep.
if you are working on a game and you have like a really unusual problem, just there's sometimes you just got to check stupid stuff. Like it's always like, oh, I looked everywhere, it's not there. Well, then now you have to look in places where it normally wouldn't be because that's probably where it is. So you don't think a cable's going to go bad. They're like $8, $10 or something. You can get them on Amazon, eBay, whatever. I got mine from Micro Center. It was $8,
That's a
and you
Klein.
just
That's actually a Klein one. That'll do.
yeah. This is
Actually,
this is a little bit fancier.
yeah.
This, but if you're working networking or whatever,
Yep.
you have a use for the higher end stuff. But you just basically need to see if all the wires are good and you're getting connection all the way through. And you just and the nice thing is they come into like are these paired or no? Like
That
this
that could
has
be. That's a phone, I think. One too.
okay. So like the one I have is two pieces and then they slide apart and then you
Yep.
have the main one with the battery. You plug it into one end. So this would work like if you're in your house if you're running network cable in your house and you can take the other end to the other room and you'll just see all the lights will blink down. You see that it's working. But in a game you still need to be able to separate it because you don't always have to take the cable out. So you plug one end to the other end of the cable, plug in the other. If it's good, well at least you have a pretty good idea that that's not the problem, but that's not always the case. That's the fun of troubleshooting because parts will test good but fail under a load. It's like you take your meter and I diode tested this transistor. Well, yeah, when you're just measuring the gates, it's one thing, but now you're asking the transistor to do work and it doesn't want to do anything. So, and that's also part of the fun of fixing things that somebody else messed with, which
Exactly.
we can elaborate on that another time. That's a
That's
whole
that's.
seminar by itself.
I was gonna say the tester is something you can actually get away with buying on Temu because that's something
Yeah.
real simple. They can't screw that up. Well, all right. I said I'm gonna lose my voice
Good.
when I'm on the floor out there, but yeah, what's up? Depending on what it is. Now, if it's surface mount, yes. Hell yeah! You know all the static in that thing? No. Older electronics has a higher tolerance for static. I've never really seen in my time working on boards that a wrist strap was actually needed, even though it practiced a good protocol, which is good. I like it. But no, when I do surface mount, when I'm working on stuff for Stern games, Pinball Brothers, because I've had to fix, yeah, that board a few times. I burn a lot of transistors on our Alien because we got one of the first Alien machines, so we were a guinea pig. We got to test a lot of the hardware. It's working great now. So after a few revisions of the software and upsites. So, good question though. Good question.
Although I did have a fun little story. I did blow up a transistor with static. I was getting ready to replace one in the board, and I grabbed it out of the drawer, and I dropped it. And when I bent down to pick it up, I had a static discharge on the floor. And I'm like, I wonder if I blew this thing up. And I measured it, and yep, it was blown up. So it does
Yep.
happen. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So is a picture tube, but that's fine.
yeah.
We love picture tubes. Obviously, these are some of the things I always talk about. We always inspect harnesses and cable, inspect other people's work, ensure that a ground plug is installed.
Ooh, can I tell a little story on that?
Mm, you're,
Just quickly,
yeah,
people's like, oh, do I need these grounds? Yes, you need the grounds. I had a guy call me up. He had a Superman and a Bally Star Trek, and he says, my grandkids are playing the game and they're getting shocked. I'm like, well, you wearing bare feet? I said, no, they were never had any problems, but the ladies, the housekeepers were here and they moved stuff around. So they broke the ground prong off of the Star Trek when they unplugged it. But I actually took pictures. I'm going to write it up. I measured 60 volts AC between the two games.
yep,
So yes, you need the ground strap.
yeah. You can actually find that out by actually putting the voltmeter on the rails.
That's what I mean. That's what I did. I went from lockdown bar to lockdown
Yep,
bar. I was getting 60
rails
volts
locked
AC.
or the old finger test.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of everything, so I'm still alive. So you do pre-power up. Obviously, this is something when I get a new game, I tell people to just disconnect things and just basically do things in a systematic way. Plug things in slowly. Always start with your CPU and then work up. Newer games, White Star, other words for that, I won't say it out loud. Uh, they have to have the driver board and CPU talking all the time. It's called communications, like kids. They have to listen, they have to talk back. Did you have a question? You're overseas. That might be something totally different. Because I think you guys don't. Do you guys have a ground line over there? Okay. See, I know with import games, I see a lot of them that just have two prongs. I don't know if there's exceptions to that. That's a good one. Uh, yeah, very similar to what we see here with talking about the getting electric cues there a little bit. We know about test points, don't we? Nobody. Bueller. This is a Bally machine, obviously. I broke this out a little bit easier so people can understand. I can share this one as well. Dave Fix over there making noise. No, oh, you notice he left. Where's he at? He's supposed to learn things. Uh, obviously, test points are your friend for testing machines. If it doesn't match what the voltage says on the schematic, target in those areas, check fuses, everything. Same. I mean, it feels like we're preaching to you. It's always, always the fuse's fault. Bally Stern things. This is obviously shows how it breaks down a little bit and things what to stay away from. There's one in there. There's a high voltage one. That's why the one's in red. Don't rub up against that one. These are some alternate board replacements. This one's actually pretty decent by Golf. But what if, obviously, we do have aftermarket boards, and we can see that a lot of these newer boards are very well built. Very well built.
Yeah, I know there's a lot. I'm sorry to
You
interrupt.
go
That's
for
my
it.
make a point. I know sometimes you want to fix original boards and keep them original, and then after a while, it's just not worth it. Like that Bally rectifier board, um, the bridges get hot, the connectors get burned up from the GI. It just to just sit there and try to fix it, it just isn't worth it anymore.
Yeah.
I
Fortunately,
mean,
this is actually a really clean one. We don't see many burnt
yeah,
ones.
if it's clean and it's don't break it, don't fix it if it isn't broken. But most of the time, these need to be replaced. And any time I have a customer with a Bally game, if it's got that the little rectifier board on it, I 90% of the time just tell them replace it.
Yep. Newer's better. Okay, this is one I actually talked about. Obviously, when the game CPU board works at good power, now go onto your CPU. Then we check that. Obviously, with Bally's, they do have a test LED on there. You'll learn about those LED codes here in a second. Like I said, I target this era because it's easy and it's fun to learn. Obviously, we got battery damage. We know what to do with that. You can clean it up. And of course, anybody know what's circled here on the rightmost? What's that? Hell no. That's an AMI PIA. You know about AMI PIAs, don't you? High failure rate. Let's go back. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, right here. Yeah, AMI PIA. Problem obviously when they were made. How many people are Commodore users back in the 80s? This is good. Obviously, a lot of their MOS chips did fail because of this similar problem. When they were actually pressed in the factory and made, there was contamination between layers. And over the years, they would disintegrate the traces that go back out to the pin legs and do damage. And we see this common. If we see this any like an AMI chip anywhere, not the, it's like Timu basically of the PIAs. Just change it. Motorola is the best ones that I know of.
Makes them too, don't they?
ST, I think, but
ST. I like ST products.
there's
Motorola.
actually alternates for PIAs too. You can use a Western Digital. It's a totally different number.
It's a 6521.
6520.
6521.
I think
You
so.
can get them new now, yeah.
Yep. It's probably something that's probably a 6800 and a 6821. Who knows? There's people that actually do unveilings like where they take the acetone and actually get those layers off and find out, like the old Scooby Doo episode when they rip off the mask. Now you know who's underneath there doing the dirty work. Uh, Obviously, repairs obviously will depend on how scale is damaged because we've seen a lot of Bally boards and Williams boards, Data East boards damaged by battery damage. Your time, is it worth it? Do you want the game running tomorrow? You can't team move that. Skill level, obviously. Can you fix battery damage? I can do it for surely. I'm sure you can too. Um, the availability of parts, and of course, if you can fix it, you get bragging rights.
The just one thing in fixing different games. If you have a System 3 game, you can pull all the sockets off, clean the battery corrosion up, put new sockets on, and usually you're fine. The Bally games aren't as forgiving, so if you have to change sockets, it's
Yep.
another thing we're talking about the PIAs. I used to just go in and change sockets, and then the board doesn't work because you got one little microscopic break in an address or data line, and you can't see it, and you have to sit there and measure it all out. So if you're ever going to do that on your Bally board, do one at a time and test it. Change one socket, test it, go to the next one. So at least now you know where the problem is instead of was it 5 chips ago? Yeah,
Just like me, I'm going to use that bad word I said, don't shotgun things. I do shotgun it because I can do that. Obviously, alternates, you've seen the Altec boards. There's some other board manufacturers out there. I don't know. I've been good friends with Dave, so I know I push his product because I believe it. I stand behind it. And if there's a problem, he'll replace it free. Just don't tell him. No, actually, he actually offers that, if I remember right. A
I think it
couple,
has a lifetime
yeah,
warranty. Yeah.
lifetime warranty. Real nice guy. There's another alternate solution. Battery damage, obviously. We talk about the pin headers on the switches and so forth. Inspect for closely gray and white green pins, not gray hair. So that's because we get from working on them. Um, it should be like a semi-silver, dull is acceptable on the pin colors. Uh, Repin headers, obviously. Do not obviously use emery boards. I've seen people do sandpaper. Horrible. Because basically you're just taking layers off the pins and you're just doing more damage, more hell for you. Because it may work great first time and maybe a month down the road it'll stop working. But see, there's your magic. This is your thing we were talking about Bally because they talk about the 7 flashes. 7 is the magic number because 7 means go. And this breaks them down. This is actually on Pin Wiki as well as some of Clay's guides. This is also in the book. You'd be surprised how many people, like I said, who uses Facebook for doing pinball repairs. Okay, good. I'm not going to get yelled at. There's so many people out there that post things on there. I was like, what do I change or where is it? I was like, open the damn manual. Everything's right in. Oh, it's a scammer. Do we want to take care of him? Also, you can use your live translate and screw with them bad. They don't like it. Yeah, use the manual. I mean, the manual's got everything you need to know in there. It's like the Bible for the game. If it's not there, obviously, then you can get things. This date back a little bit. This shows obviously some of the old Clay guides that were out there and so forth, including I think a original warranty card from Gottlieb. This is something you don't see very often. So from a haunted house I used to have. So long time ago. Those days are gone. But yeah, the manual will have everything, especially like the lamp sequences. They actually have a spread, a little arrow thing that'll show you what to do and so what to change. Yes, your friend's house. No, actually, the pinball database actually has those online. Most of them. Um, you won't find. What's that? There's some vendors like the pinball show here. You might find some good manuals out there. You never know. You won't find anything from Gottlieb, obviously, because of the copyright registration. Check with Steve Young on those. He still has a lot of manuals. If he doesn't, he does have originals that he can reproduce for you, especially with older. Okay, I'm breaking off the topic. Solid state, electromechanical stuff. So he does have all that stuff available where needed. But yeah, that's definitely a good question because you need a manual obviously if you don't have one.
And just a quick side note on Steve. I mean, his website, it's very outdated. He just doesn't want to have to worry about. That's why he doesn't take credit cards. But if you don't see something on his website, call him because he's got way more parts and knowledge than you would even imagine.
Yeah,
So he's helped me out with unusual problems.
especially if you can't
Yeah,
find
so
something.
give him a call for sure.
Yep. Obviously, this is one for displays, for Bally displays. I'll go over it really quick. Like I said, I can share this to you guys if you guys want. Obviously, when troubleshooting Bally displays, I think it's probably one of the easiest displays to fix. Obviously, we check for voltages. We check the bottom of the displays. Cold solder has been one of our killers for a lot of these games, video games, pinball machines, even some household products too. You can have even like audio gear too, which is a big thing because I do restoration on vintage audio gear. We do check resistors on it because obviously if a segment's out, they'll be labeled in there 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11. If one's open, segment don't light. It's like a fuse basically for the segment.
Yeah, they're the 100K resistors.
Yep,
And if you find a bad one, especially there's ones that had little, they weren't like resistors are usually rounded, but some of them are square. And if you see them, just replace them all because they're going
yep.
to fail over time.
And the other thing too is unplug all your displays, test them one at a time. Because you could have one display cascading and disturbing the data to another one. That is really common on a lot of Zachariah games because their data is chained. And if one is not working correctly, it can take out everything upstream.
And the Zacharias, you have to put them back in the spot they came out of
Yep,
because
they're jumper.
there's little jumpers on them for each one, so you can't take player one and player three without switching the jumpers. Whereas the Bally's you can.
This is a spoiler alert too. Xpin is now starting to design, and I think he's already got some design with the help of Pastimes and myself, LED segments for Zachariah games, which they used to be able to buy them overseas. So that's a shout out to Brett. So if you ever need display stuff, he's perfect for that. This breaks it down, obviously, in the schematic on which drive transistor and what goes with everything. Like I said, I'll share this. We're going to go through it pretty quickly because I know we're going to be running out of time here shortly. Same idea for testing your power. It'll point it out to different directions on the schematic. Like I said, the information is there. You just got to look for it. Like I said, don't be afraid to, as we do, take it to the bathroom and read it while you're studying on the throne. You might learn something. High voltage section obviously is a little trickier. I'm sure you guys have gotten nailed by the 230. I have numerous times. This this is the Bally. Very
Yeah, one thing if you're going to service your Bally driver board, measure the display voltage from the test points. I think it's on the middle to the right of the heatsink, the smaller heatsink, because what I've found several times is that the 230 volts that comes from the transformer doesn't get regulated down, and then the full 230s go into the displays, and they'll take it, but I don't know for how long. So save yourself some trouble. But if you find that the transistor on the heatsink is bad,
and
and then
most of
there's the two little cans, what are they,
yeah
2N44
yeah
44s? The
these
one with the fins is bad too. There's
yep
one that's got, just replace the three of them, and you can
yep.
save yourself a
And
lot of
the
time.
other thing too, obviously, there is always a plastic protector on there. If you take it off, put it back on. Zacharias are the worst because theirs are right there. When you're working on it, you bump against that damn post, you feel it. Solenoid drivers, we talked about that just a little bit, and the other ones very similar to the addressing how things work. Obviously, so you see the BDC that breaks it down to the different segments and where they go. And it's basically the outputs from the decoders that goes to the muxes. Mux is basically another latch that's throwing it out to different directions. The parts are out there. I think that's a CA 3081. If you don't have, obviously, we got alternate boards. Altec does sell alternate boards. I like it because this one actually has LEDs on it that shows you when the solenoid's firing, so you can troubleshoot a lot easier too to make sure that your data is getting from the computer to the solenoid driver board. Lamp boards, we did talk about that. You'll see the same copied slides here, obviously. Uh, Lamps, obviously, with LEDs. Everybody wants the LEDs or newer games. You can get away with this on Williams games and so forth. WPC machines, they do are starting. People are starting to patch the ROMs for ghosting. If you don't, phone a friend. We can definitely patch them. Flickering for Bally's and Stearns. You can use these little boards here. They're wonderful if you don't want to buy an Alltech board. They're real easy to use. We use them at pastimes all the time because Lord knows if we had to buy driver boards for lamps, we would have an outrageous bill, and we couldn't keep up with it. But we do. And of course, the aftermarket solution. The one thing I do like about Alltech's boards, don't be afraid of surface mount stuff. You can heat that off with a hot air gun if you got one. He was nice enough to put through hole contacts on there so you can actually use normal transistors, unless you want the challenge of putting a new one on the board, surface mount. I did got some stuff in here for soundboards, obviously, for Bally. Bally obviously had so many different boards that they use for different soundboards. Obviously, the proms make a difference on some games. If you don't have it, they do have adapters that can convert the proms from EPROMs to the prom. I don't remember who sells that, but there's someone out there sells them. This is another version of a soundboard for a Bally. More advanced stuff with it, has more advanced audio and features and so forth. Then we start getting into the fun stuff like Squawk and Talks. Everybody likes talking pinball machines. Okay, I'm going to stump up you guys. Do you guys know what the first video game is that used the Squawk and Talk? What's that? Say, Gorgar didn't use the Squawk and Talk. Video game. Ah, see. Didn't use a Squawk and Talk. All right, you guys you're striking out big time. Discsatron. And you can actually make a Bally board work in a Discsatron. I pointed that out on the K-Love forums, and somebody flamed me. Was like, you can't do that. I called everybody out. I was like, use your test points as your friend. All the power's there to do it. The data's there. You make two jumpers, and boom, your Tron talks. Not the real Tron, but the Discsatron. This is a soundboard that I don't have pictures of. The only games that actually use an echo board, which was the Centaurs. Reverb. It's called Echo Generator. Obviously, Bally soundboards, we do this all the time at pastimes. We obviously check voltages, check for cold solder joints, which is real common on a lot of these soundboards because they do have the big hunkin' 4700 microfarad cap on there. Obviously, EPROMs, check where available. If you got an EPROM burner, check for checksums. If it feels warmer than normal, replace it because some of these chips will burn up. Recap, recap, recap. You'd be surprised what a recap on a soundboard makes it do. It makes it sound so much better. Stern boards I don't like working on. They are a pain in the butt. I'm sure you understand that one too. They obviously had two versions of it, and there was a third one, obviously, that did the speech. I think that's it on that slide. Horror stories or pictures, we probably got some of those in here too. Solid state repairs. Obviously, these are some of my slides. Yes. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can do that. What's your question, Dave? What other games uses -5 to run? Pinball machine or video game? Oh, you're gonna stump us both here. Yeah, you were playing with one. That's the funny thing. Yes, his silly little victory. Game plan. Yep, yep. Any other questions other than Dave? Yes, sir. That sounds like you have probably missing data coming from the CPU, possibly. When the machine warms up, obviously things contract a little bit. Yep. Check for cold solder joints too.
Connectors,
Yep. And
check
if I
those.
remember right, Black Knight used the auxiliary board on the System 7. So check your pin header on the right side of the board. It's probably like 9 if I remember right. 9 or 11 pin connector on the MPU board. Because that's one the System 7 was the one that directed that soundboard directly for a lot of the speech calls. I don't think any other game board from that era did that because everything else was the cheaper version of like the cheap talk, or not cheap talk, but I want to say that the simple board. It just made bleeps and cheap
Yeah,
and
didn't have the speech.
yeah, no speech. Games like Flash and stuff like that. We can wind up anytime you want, sir. Next, who's up next? I appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, look for me through the show. Pick on Frank.